Hey Zach, I hope you're doing well. I know I am. I'm starting to finally get the hang of my 6th semester of classes. It's looking like it'll be a good year. My Tuesdays and my Thursdays are free from 9:30 to 3, which means I'll have a lot more time to work on vlogging and posting on our YouTube channel, so be watching for more stuff. I think I'm finally going to start getting back in the swing of things. That being said, I finally want to get around to reporting on my experience in the creative writing workshop that I took last semester. It was a workshop on writing fiction. There are about 15 of us or so, and we spent all of our time learning about the craft of fiction writing and also writing our own stories and having them critiqued by our peers and critiquing our peers' stories in turn. It was a great experience, and I feel I learned and grew a lot as a writer, and I want to sort of share some of the insights that the course offered me. I'm hoping to do a couple of posts about my experience in this workshop, and the sort of common thread that's going to tie them all together is this idea that we discussed of achieving universality through specificity. What does that mean? Let me explain. We as writers tend to want to infuse our stories with grandiose universal themes and topics that we think anybody could and should be able to relate to. This sort of delusion of grandeur that we want what we write to be important. It's a natural tendency, and it's not bad. What is bad is when we fall into certain traps that crop up when we go about including those universal themes in what we're writing. I know I myself fall into this trap often, where the desire to write something universal leads us down paths of imprecise and vague language. We've had conversations in the past, particularly regarding character, where I used to have this philosophy where I didn't want to define the characters physically too much, or the places physically too much, because I wanted the readers to be able to project their own visions of these characters onto these people, creating something that I hoped would be more universal and relatable to anybody if it wasn't defined specifically. I'll talk more about character in another video. I wanted to use this one to talk more about setting, but what I'm about to say is true for both of those parameters, as well as essentially whatever other parameter in fiction you want to talk about. And that's this, that it's actually in specific detail, in specificity, that we can achieve a greater universality and relatability. It seems really backwards, and to me it was something that I struggled to learn. But what ultimately taught me this lesson is a story we read called Refresh, Refresh by Benjamin Percy. And in it he creates this setting that is altogether very, very specific. It's this town in the American West. There's snow, and there's this giant crater right next to the city. Not every town has its own crater. All these little details, discussing exactly what type of stores they had, discussing the woods that they went into and the way that the land sloped up and down, and returning frequently to this gigantic crater as a part of the setting. So all in all, a very specific place, a very definite place that probably nobody reading the story has lived in themselves. And yet, it's very easy to relate to this story because everything else about the story is totally relatable. All the ideas behind the places, the emotions behind the characters, no matter how different and unrelatable the setting itself might be based on our personal experience, still, he makes it very easy to connect to this story because of how much realism and how much attention to specific detail he puts into the world that he constructs. The key is this: creating universality does not lie in creating something which the readers can build up on their own. The key to universality comes from giving them something that feels real, giving them something believable, because then they'll not have to project their own world, but they can project their own experiences onto the emotions that take place in that setting. Simply put, if you give the readers more detail, they will have more to hang on to, and they will buy into the story more, submerge into your world more, if they have more to go off of. And because of that, they will definitely relate to it more than they would if you didn't give them that detail. Like I said, setting is something that historically I haven't paid very much attention to. It's one of those things that I wanted the reader to build up on their own. But I've now, after going through this workshop, have definitely committed to try to build my worlds a little bit more as far as setting goes. For example, the book I'm working on writing right now, The Phantom Children, the first half, which I wrote mainly my freshman year and part of my sophomore year, the city that part of the story takes place in is not named. It's fairly undefined. The only settings that I define are really the house, the main house that they spend a lot of their time in, and a couple other places that they go, but I don't do much in the way of fleshing out the whole world. The second half of this book, which I started just this past summer and worked on over the course of this first semester of this year and over a Christmas break, the story shifts to a new city, and instantly it has a name. It has details around it. I use a lot of this first chapter and this second half to help describe this new city that this character finds herself in, and allowing the readers to have something to help them establish their vision of this world. I'm definitely preferring the direction that I'm taking the second city, and I am really enjoying the process of building up imagery for the location that these characters find themselves in. So again, I'll talk more about detailing characters later, but for now the main point is that whether it's setting or character, what have you, giving detail allows readers to believe in what they're reading. So quite simply, it's specificity that you need in order to achieve greater universality. The one way that I heard it put that has stuck with me more than anything else in the class is that you need to crowd out the reader's vision of your story and replace it with your own. Sort of like that famous quote from Mythbusters, I reject your reality and substitute my own. It's this idea of do not give them room to imagine their own vision of your story. Give them so much to hold on to that they have no other choice but to watch your particular vision like a movie that's playing out right before their eyes. Zach, I hope things keep going well. Keep watching and I'll get into character in the next video. So good luck and I'll see you later. And I want to sort of share some of the insights that the course offered me. That was it. That was it right there.